Honey, sit down. I need you to look me in the eyes when I tell you this, because I wish, with every wrinkle on this old face, that somebody had sat me down and said the exact same thing 70 years ago. I am 106 years old. I have outlived 2 husbands, a recession that made grown men cry at their kitchen tables, a stock market crash that took everything my neighbor had saved in 30 years, and I have watched up close what money does to people when they understand it, and what it does to people when they don't. And right now, I am watching an entire generation of people who are smart, people who are working hard, people who are doing their absolute best, quietly walking toward the same cliff I once walked toward. And most of them don't even know the edge is there. I lost $90,000, not in one dramatic moment, not because of some scam or some stranger. I lost it slowly, quietly, in decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time. Decisions about my 401k, decisions I made because nobody told me better. And by the time I understood what I'd done, those years were gone. That money was gone. And the compounding that could have turned that 90,000 into something extraordinary, into a real legacy, that was gone too. I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you this because you still have time. You are watching this right now, which means the clock hasn't run out on you yet. And if there's one thing I've learned in 106 years, it is this. The most expensive lessons are the ones you pay for with years instead of dollars. So before you touch your 401k, before you borrow from it, cash it out, stop contributing, or make any move at all, I need you to watch this entire video, because what I'm about to share with you might just be the most important financial conversation you've ever had. And if this kind of real lived wisdom is something you want more of, if you want the honest truth about money and retirement and the things nobody tells you until it's almost too late, please subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button, because I have more to say and I don't intend to be quiet about any of it. I was 38 years old when I first got access to a 401k through my employer. This was back when most working women were still being told by their husbands what to do with their paycheck, and I was one of them, at least for a little while. My first husband, God rest his soul, was a good man, but he was terrible with money. Not maliciously, just carelessly. The way so many people are careless with money, because nobody ever taught them to respect it. We had bills. We always had bills. And when the refrigerator broke down in the winter of 1962 and we didn't have the savings to fix it, my husband looked at the 401k statement on the kitchen table and said, "Margaret, we've got money right there." And I, who didn't know any better, agreed with him. We withdrew $600. $600 that, in 1962, felt like an enormous relief. $600 that paid for the refrigerator and the electric bill and kept us from borrowing from my sister again. What I did not understand, what no one explained to me, was what that $600 actually cost us. There was the 10% early withdrawal penalty. There were the income taxes we owed on it as ordinary income. And then there was the invisible cost, the one you never see on any statement, the one that doesn't announce itself until decades later when you sit down with a calculator and realize what that money would have grown into if you'd left it alone. $600, left untouched in a retirement account in 1962, growing at an average rate over the next 40 years. Do you know what that becomes? I do now. I know it now because a financial advisor sat across from me when I was 67 years old and showed me a piece of paper, and what was on that paper made me grip the edge of the desk. That $600 would have become over $22,000 by the time I retired. We took it for a refrigerator. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that keeping food cold isn't important. I'm telling you that the refrigerator was not an emergency. It felt like one. It was framed like one. But we had options we didn't explore because we didn't know to look for them. And that is the first and most devastating mistake I made with my retirement money, treating it like a savings account I could dip into when things got tight. Your 401k is not a savings account. I need you to hear me say that as clearly as I can. It is not a rainy day fund. It is not an emergency cushion. It is a time machine. And every time you pull money out of it before you're supposed to, you're not just withdrawing cash, you're destroying time. You are killing years of compounding that can never be recovered. You are robbing your future self in a way that no thief could ever touch. I want you to think about someone in your life. Maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you love who has told themselves, I'll just borrow from it this once. I'll put it back. How many times has that person put it back? How many times has once turned into twice, and twice into a habit, and a habit into a retirement account that sits nearly empty at 62 while the years of earning are almost behind them? I was that person. And I'm telling you now, I cannot get those years back. I cannot get that compounding back. What I lost wasn't just $90,000. It was the version of my later years that $90,000, properly invested and left alone, would have funded. That first withdrawal was the crack in the foundation, and over the next 15 years of my marriage, that crack spread. Small decisions, each one feeling justified, each one feeling temporary, each one quietly stealing from the person I would eventually become. By the time I was 53, I had touched my retirement account 11 separate times. 11 times. And each time I told myself it was just this once. The second great mistake I made was one that I've come to believe is even more common than early withdrawals and far more invisible. It is the mistake of not understanding what your money is actually doing inside your 401k and just leaving it sitting there in the wrong place because you checked the box that said enroll and thought your job was done. When I was 44, I started a new job. The HR woman was young and kind and spoke very quickly. She handed me a stack of papers, and somewhere in that stack was the enrollment form for the company's retirement plan. I checked the box. I filled in the percentage. I signed my name, and I thought I had done the right thing. What I didn't know, what she didn't explain, and I didn't know to ask, was that by checking that box without making a specific investment selection, my contributions were being automatically placed into what was essentially a money market fund. A fund that was so conservative, so cautious, that it barely kept pace with inflation. For 11 years, my money sat in that account growing at a rate so slow, it was practically standing still. 11 years. Every paycheck, a portion of my earnings going into a retirement account, and earning almost nothing because I didn't know that enrolling and investing are two completely different things. When I finally sat down with someone who understood these accounts and they showed me what my balance should have been versus what it actually was, the difference was breathtaking, not in a good way. It was the kind of number that makes your chest go tight and your hands go cold. If my contributions over those 11 years had been placed in even a moderately diversified portfolio, something a person my age and timeline should have been in, the balance would have been nearly $40,000 higher. $40,000. Not because I didn't save, not because I made bad bets on the market, but simply because I didn't know the difference between being enrolled and being invested. And I want to ask you something right now, with all the directness I have left in me at 106 years old. Do you know where your 401k contributions are actually going? Not the name of the account, not the percentage you're contributing. I mean, do you know what funds your money is sitting in right now? Do you know whether those funds match your timeline, your risk tolerance, your goals? Because I have talked to people, younger people, people with good jobs and good intentions, who look at me with that same blank expression I must have worn at 44. The expression that says I enrolled. I thought that was enough. It is not enough. It has never been enough. And the gap between what your money does when it's in the right place versus the wrong place inside your 401k is one of the quietest, most consequential financial differences in your entire life. The third thing I want you to understand, and this one comes from the deepest and most painful part of my experience, is about fees, about the small percentages that you never see taken out of your paycheck, never feel leaving your hand, but that quietly consume decades of your wealth right before your eyes. If you know where to look. I didn't know where to look for a very long time. There is a fee called an expense ratio. It is attached to every fund inside your 401k. It is expressed as a small percentage, sometimes 0.5%, sometimes 1%, sometimes more. And I know what you're thinking because I thought the same thing. 1% isn't anything. 1% is rounding error. 1% is what I leave in the tip jar at the coffee shop. Let me tell you what 1% looks like over 30 years on a retirement account. If you have $200,000 invested and one fund charges you 1% annually while another comparable fund charges you only 0.1%, The difference in your final balance over 30 years is not 1%. It is not even close to 1%. It is, depending on market conditions, often more than $50,000. Sometimes it is closer to $80,000. Gone. Not to the market, not to bad luck, to fees, to a percentage so small you could read right past it on a statement without blinking. I paid high-fee funds for years because nobody sat me down and explained this, because the funds with the highest fees were often the ones most prominently displayed, most aggressively marketed, most frequently recommended by people who had a financial interest in recommending them. I am not angry about this anymore. I was for a long time. But anger at that age doesn't change the account balance. What I am now is determined to say it plainly to anyone who will listen. Look at your fees. Find your expense ratios. Compare them. This is not complicated. This is not something you need a degree for. You need 5 minutes and the willingness to look. Those 5 minutes can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. I know because they came too late for me, and I know exactly what that cost. Here is what I want to leave you with, because we are coming to the end of this conversation, and I don't know how many more conversations I have in me. Not because I intend to go anywhere soon, I've made it this far, but because I understand in a way that perhaps only someone my age truly can, that time is the only currency that cannot be earned back once it's spent. The mistakes I made with my 401k were not the mistakes of a foolish woman. They were the mistakes of an uninformed one, and that is a distinction that matters enormously to me. I was not careless with money out of laziness or indifference. I was careless with it out of ignorance, an ignorance that was, in many ways, the product of a world that didn't see fit to teach women about their own financial futures. That world has changed. You have access to information I never had. You have the ability, right now, to look at your 401k statement and understand it in a way that took me 40 years to learn. You have the gift of time. Even if it feels like it's running out, even if retirement feels far away or uncomfortably close, you have more of it than I had when I finally started making the right choices. Do not touch your 401k without understanding what you're touching. Do not borrow from it because it feels like the easiest solution. Because the ease you feel today will cost you in a way that will not reveal itself fully for decades. And by then, the regret is a different kind of weight entirely. Know where your money is invested. Not just that it's invested. Where and in what and why and what it costs you to keep it there. And understand this above everything else. Your retirement account is not a resource. It is not a safety net you get to use whenever you need one. It is a promise you are making to the person you will be in 20, 30, 40 years. That person is counting on you. That person has no other advocate but the choices you make right now, today, while you still have the time to make them well. I made a $90,000 mistake. I made it in pieces, slowly, quietly, the way most financial disasters actually happen, not in one catastrophic moment, but in 100 small surrenders, each one feeling justified, none of them reversible. You do not have to make it two. I have told you what I know. I have told you what it cost me. And now I'm asking you to do one thing before you close this video. Just one thing. Go look at your 401k today, not tomorrow, not when things settle down. Today. Look at what's in it. Look at where it's invested. Look at the fees. And if you don't understand what you're looking at, start asking questions until you do. Because the most important account in your financial life should never be a mystery to you, not for another day. If this conversation mattered to you, if even one thing I said today landed somewhere real, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below telling me where you are in your retirement journey, because I read every single one, and I believe with everything in me that we are better at this when we are honest with each other. I'm Margaret Elaine. I'm 106 years old, and I still have things to say. I'll see you in the next one.